We used to be in a place where we didn't have any official process. We pretty much used, a mix of email. Some CSMs were using their own kind of free tools they would find online. We had some spreadsheets as well. It was a bit messy and really not very consistent. The best way I can describe it when it comes to onboarding, the customer journey was pretty much a black hole. So the customer would come in, they would kind of disappear for a few months, and then at some point they would come out of onboarding and become a live customer. Hi, I'm John. I work for Frontify. I look after primarily the customer onboarding experience at Frontify and also our EMEA growth team as well. We're essentially a brand management platform. We help creating a home for brands to create their guidelines, to share their assets, and we create a space essentially for brands to create a home for their employees, their users, but also their partners, PR, agency companies, anyone who takes part in working with their. We're pretty much a global team. We have CSMs spread across multiple locations, around 40, 50 CSMs working with different segments of customers. We used to be in a place where we didn't have any official process. You would go around and ask, how does onboarding work at Frontify? And the answer was always, it depends, because, every customer is different. And yes, every customer is different, but that doesn't mean that we cannot have a standardized process to support their onboarding, because it's the only way that we can actually ensure any type of quality in what we do. We pretty much used, a mix of email. Some CSMs were using their own kind of free tools they would find online. We had some spreadsheets as well. It was a bit messy and really not very consistent. The best way I can describe it when it comes to onboarding, the customer journey was pretty much a black hole. So the customer would come in, they would kind of disappear for a few months, and then at some point they would come out of onboarding and become a live customer. Right? Before, when we had a Google spreadsheet for a customer, we would have to go through the trouble of updating that spreadsheet first, taking details manually and writing down on the spreadsheet. And then all it took was for the customer to do one simple change. For example, I don't want to go live on this date. I want to go live 2 weeks later. And we would have to go through the entire spreadsheet and try to adjust everything manually. It wasn't very efficient. We needed something to help us on making it consistent across all teams, because we do have several sub-teams working on a global scale. So it's very hard to put something in place that everybody's going to follow if really there's no tool to do it. You can implement processes and guides, but without visibility, it becomes very difficult to make sure that everyone is following the same process. And so that was one of the kind of triggers for us. Was we had tried task management tools before, and we had tried a solution with our own CRM at the time, and it really wasn't very customer facing, and it wasn't really that easy to use. And so we had certain things that we knew we had to look for in this new tool as well. So yeah, all of those things kind of played a part into finding out a tool like Rocketlane. One of the things Rocketlane changed for us was allow us to design a process that could be used not just for us internally to measure what we're doing, to keep track of things, but also to give customers the sense of direction and know exactly what they need to do at what time. And really that was one of the biggest transformations we saw in our customer success team, was the ability to shape our journey with customers and actually make it much more consistent. The way we start onboarding with customers, it's effortless now. We are now tracking things like time to first value, which is one of our main goals. So we measure time between onboarding start to delivering that first training session. We are able to track and measure and make improvements on that initial time. We were taking on average around 30 to 40 days in terms of that first start. And now we see cases where that initial start around 20 days, which is a really good improvement, right? So just the fact we can actually see the improvement in the time, everything is much more standardized. I think everybody appreciates the integration we have with Salesforce as well. New customer comes in, they sign the agreement with us, automatically create a project already with the right tasks. We have different templates. So if a customer has this case A, B, but not C, you'll create a different task plan, different onboarding documents for them as well. And that just happens automatically. So the CSM just has to coming in, looking for the onboarding plan. We have some internal tasks in the beginning, check, and then introduce that to the customer. Customers, they just see the onboarding plan and they jump to it. Last week, we had a CSM share an example. You know what? I just went to the onboarding plan, put it in front of the customer, and it was just super easy. It took 2 seconds instead of me writing everything down. Yeah, so those are the most common things that our CSMs talk about it now is that things are a lot easier, efficient. They're able to save a lot of time. So one of the things that really changed the way we work was the ability to understand at which stage the customer exactly is. So before it was just onboarding, and as soon as we put Rocketlane in place, we put together different phases that allows us to understand if the customer is initial setup side of things or if they're more deep into the implementation or approaching go live. It allows us to then predict where the customer is going to be by a certain period. It allows us to communicate with our customers a lot better. One of the interesting things we've done was to link up our CRM, Salesforce, and with HubSpot, essentially our customer marketing team is able now to send out specific communications based on that phase where they are. So if the customer more in the initial stages, they can send email communications giving a gentle introduction into brand management. If they're approaching the go live, then things like how to prepare to integrate Frontify in the organization. So it's not necessarily things related with the onboarding itself, it's more about educating customers and doing that at the right time. We use the CSAT evaluation forms in Rocketlane to collect feedback from the customer. And that was really interesting because we started measuring the beginning of the journey to send out just a question of how do you feel things are going so far. And then at the end, we also implemented customer effort score where we asked how easy was it to onboard with us. And so with that, we started collecting feedback, which is very useful. We get a lot of positive feedback about our own onboarding now, something that we really didn't have a good idea before implementing Rocketlane. So I just want to say for all the support and all the care, I think you guys have been a great partner to work with so far.